Hey, Scott Jordan here, and Mark Warner for Jancast number 94, April 15th. Mark Warner, where you been? Let's take these off. Come on. We're socially distanced. Well, Mark, you were out
I'm
in the
happy to
wild.
be back, and I really enjoyed your solo flying event last week.
How about that
Uh,
allocation news, huh?
yeah, ketchup. Who would have thought?
Yeah, next thing is going to be relish and mustard, and then hot
Yeah,
dogs right after that.
yeah. As long as it's not beer.
Well, it could be beer because aluminum cans. I believe there could be a shortage, maybe on the pop top things. But so you were out in the wild, so that must have been pretty unusual for you after a year and a half of not going anywhere.
Well, I had the opportunity. I was asked by the ISSA to do a certification class, um, as I'm still one of the listed ISSA master trainers.
Hmm.
So I had to give it a lot of thought, Scott, because I was kind of nervous about traveling somewhere with the COVID situation, and I
Yeah,
hadn't had my vaccination at that point, and it concerned me. So I kind of expressed my concerns, and I was highly, highly relieved when I got there to find out that they were following a very, very strict, very rigid COVID protocol, 100% masking and social distancing. And I have to say, for those that haven't done any traveling, is that once you do and you walk into an environment that you can see they're adhering to a very strict
hmm,
uh, COVID compliance guideline, it inspires confidence. And
good.
so, right after I arrived, I was able to actually, at that point, really relax and be able to do, like you said, my first live training event in a very long time.
Yeah,
The program was related to education, training, and certification.
cool. And it was multiple days too, huh?
It was a 3-day period,
Yeah.
and each of the folks that attended, and there were uh, about 30 people involved in the class. There were 20 that actually came through it and got certified. And, I think really there's a short discussion we could have on what is the difference between training and certification, or even just education for that matter.
Yeah. Well, I saw the comments afterwards. They all sound like it was a great success and generated a lot of interest from other facilities, right?
Yeah, I surely did. Uh, they were looking forward to having bragging rights of taking the lead on going after doing things in a more effective way, doing things in a more efficient way, and adhering to international level of standard regarding cleanliness and how things get done. It's always surprising to me how many people that have been in the business for 10 or 20 years have never read the cleaning standards. And
Yeah.
there's a half a dozen cleaning standards. I mean, ISSA is 4. Um, and IICRC has some cleaning standards, and then different countries have their own cleaning standards. And it's very important to understand what the standards are if you're going to do any kind of training, because you have to be very clear on what's the end game.
Yeah.
What are we trying to accomplish here, and prove that we were successful in doing it. And so that was an important part. They really embraced that a lot. And I had the opportunity to talk about the differences between you know education, training, and certification. I mean, education, you get an education watching jancast.com, and it
That's
didn't
right.
cost you anything. You can
Yep.
get an education watching YouTube, watching TED Talks.
Hmm.
But training is the implementation of knowledge that you gained into your real life tasks. So training is much more involved than just gaining knowledge. It's how do you use the knowledge. And then at some point, people want to be able to document that they've received this kind of training.
Yeah.
And that's where certification comes into play. And you can't get certified unless you sit for a very involved exam process and pass it. That's documentation of that knowledge. The exam process that was on the final day of this 3-day event took some of them 4 hours to complete.
Wow. Jeez.
So it's it inspires a lot of pride in somebody that does pass a certification exam like that. And it makes it much more meaningful about having received the training and the knowledge.
Cool. And it wasn't just so everybody's understands it wasn't just about disinfecting, obviously.
No, it was the ISSA's certification program, their tactical program, which is how do you do stuff. And they call that the Certified Custodial Technician Program. And it covers 9 different aspects of custodial work, of the arts and
Mhm.
sciences of cleaning. So it gets into things like floor care, carpet care, above the floor care, restroom care, disinfection. It gets into things like the chemistry of cleaning and what are the chemicals designed to do? Do they make water wetter? You remember
Yeah.
talking about that. So,
Yep.
and then it gets into other aspects of customer service and how a frontline worker needs to act and work and look to be at their best practice in front of visitors and occupants to a building. So there's
Well,
these, a lot of these different elements that tie in, and they have to pass all of those to get certified as custodial technician through the
oh,
ISSA.
well,
But the cool thing about it is you have to be a certified instructor with the ISSA in order to provide that training. And it's recognized worldwide, Scott, from
yeah.
Australia to Far East to all throughout Europe, all throughout Canada. So people that achieve it have kind of, you know, got something they can proudly present. So,
Yeah.
and I was humbled and appreciated being asked to be the one to provide it, since there's a
Nice.
lot of CMI master trainers in the world.
Good. So upstate New York is safe.
It's as safe as anywhere.
I got a question though. You're the expert trainer. When you dust, do you dust from the bottom up or do you dust from the top
Well,
down?
you always start from the bottom up so you can redo what you previously dusted when everything falls down to it. That's a
Okay.
joke. Obviously, you do when you're dusting, you do top down so that you aren't causing disturbance in resoiling areas you've already cleaned, and you always do dry before wet. So it's funny how often people have to figure that one out the hard way.
That's why I asked the question, because every time I do it in my house, I wonder if I'm doing this right. But
Yeah,
now I
it's top down when it's dusting. Sure.
cool. Well, great. Well, good to have you kind of partially back because technically you're on vacation this week.
Yeah, this is how I spend my vacation. Painting and mowing
Yeah.
the lawn.
And you didn't even fake having the fake office in the background. You have your home office in the background.
I
Yeah.
do. Well, I didn't like the shadows it created around me. So
Yeah. It makes you look like an alien sometimes. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I remember we did one several weeks ago, and I used a fake office, and I was like
Yes.
cast in stone because
Yes.
I
You
was
had to sit there
afraid
like
to move.
everything's great, Scott. I'm really having a good time.
Right.
Okay, well, a couple breaking news as we were um, uh, between my show last week and the previous ones. There's some new CDC stuff that was put out, and the ISSA put out a nice statement on it.
Well, one of the big questions that were coming in as early as the beginning of last week were questions regarding the guidelines on the need to continue to disinfect.
Yeah.
And in reality, if you read it very closely, it was directly related to consumers in their homes, not related to commercial applications,
Hmm.
schools, colleges, universities, businesses. And if you go through the clarification of it, there is not a request to stop disinfecting. Just be aware of what you're doing. Don't want to overdo anything. Anything to excess is bad. But John Barrett, the executive director of the ISSA, put a great press release out the other day talking about how the ISSA is fully supportive of the world's intent to continue approaching high levels of cleanliness and high levels of disinfecting. And essentially, talk to anybody in healthcare, and they'll say the novel thing that's happened in the last 12 months is nobody's coming in with the common cold, the average
Yeah.
flu, or a sore throat.
Yep.
So the things that we're doing are having a positive effect beyond COVID. So nobody in their right mind would suggest that we stop doing it, but obviously be conscious of what you're doing. And Scott, it boils down to, and although John Barrett didn't talk about it in the press release, and the CDC didn't refer to it, but you and I have referred to best practices on disinfection over and over again. At
Yeah,
some point, you have to clean the surface you're disinfecting. Otherwise, you end up with either spraying disinfectant on dirt and just
yep,
getting mud, or you end up with potential residue buildup that should never be the case if somebody's following a best practice.
yeah. Well, we'll put a link in below this video for the ISSA release that John Barrett put out, just so people can look it up quickly. Because you're right, I thought it covered the subject very well. Yeah, yeah. Good. Well, the hot news, the really hot news is there's, aside from ketchup, um, there's no allocations on toilet paper. I must admit, I did go to Costco, and they had every brand you wanted there. It's amazing. So we're all good on toilet paper. Apparently, there's a glut of toilet paper that is locked away in people's closets and their garages and stuff. So we have years and years supply. So yeah, uh, the increase in toilet paper sales over the last year and a half is kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
Yeah, well, I understood why paper towels were in a short supply because everybody was cleaning, but
Yeah,
I don't think people are cleaning many various surfaces with toilet paper. There's only one surface I can think of.
yes. And if people were smart, they would have a bidet anyway. And you wouldn't even need all this. You'd still need some, but you don't need quite as much. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's about it for today. We're going to be short today because again, we're respecting Mark is on vacation, but we wanted to get out a show and also tell everybody about the success of his travels to upstate New York. So Mark, you're going to go hit the golf course or cut the grass or something this afternoon.
I'll come up with something, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll be in full show mode next week when everybody's back. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.